Good morning. Welcome to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate you all for joining with me today. We all know, or everyone has their ideas of what wins in the NFL. In my opinion, to have sustained success, and we all kind of know this, you need to be good at quarterback, you need to be good at head coach, and you need to be good at GM, especially with the amount of money that star players make, especially star quarterbacks. If your coach and your quarterback are great together, that means one day your quarterback is going to get paid, and that means it is up to your GM and the scouting department. Can we find productive players in the second and third round? Can we have good drafts? Because you cannot keep everybody. If your quarterback gets paid, we all know this, you cannot keep everybody on your roster, especially the roster that your quarterback got paid on. You're going to be able to have a few guys to big contracts, and everybody else either needs to be really young guys on rookie deals or really savvy free agent signings. So if you're going to win for any sustained period in the NFL, quarterback, coach, GM. But here's what's even more interesting about that concept. You would love to have all three. But I truly believe after the Ravens and the Chiefs, it's really hard to make an argument that somebody has all three. The Rams, I think, are the toughest argument, but Stafford's kind of in a place of limbo right now with his health and his age that I'm not quite willing to go there with them. But Mahomes, Veach, Reed in Kansas City, you got 3 A's. That's the current NFL dynasty. The team that has been pretty much right there, obviously has not had the playoff success, the Baltimore Ravens, again voted the best roster in the NFL by ESPN and multiple other sources. Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta, 3 A's, right? So you have A's at quarterback, head coach, and GM. After that, I think everyone else is debatable. You go to Buffalo. I'm not as sold on their coach and GM dynamic. Really, their GM, I think I'd be even the least sold on. McDermott, I think, is a really good coach, but I'm not willing to put him in a great category yet. Allen is obviously an A+. You go over to the Eagles, is the consensus, the easiest pick to say that's the best team in football. Look what they just did to the Chiefs. Look how they ended the season. Look at the roster. Look at the talent. Howie Roseman, we know, was an A+. A++, best GM in the sport. Jalen Hurts has been to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. I believe, without a doubt, he is clearly a top 10. If nothing else, he's a guy that's shown you he can do it, getting there and winning one. Nick Sirianni, I'm not a Nick Sirianni guy. But it goes to show you really only got to be good, really good to great at 2 of the 3 of them in order to be in the upper echelon of the NFL. If you get the right quarterback and then you have the right GM, you will have sustained success. If you have the right coach and GM, even if you don't believe in the quarterback, go to the Denver Broncos, who the majority of you don't believe in Bo Nix. Cool, not here to argue. But George Payton and Sean Payton, with the biggest dead cap in NFL history, Russell Wilson, have turned that roster into a top 3 defense, a top 3 offensive line, and a handful of skill position guys, Cortland Sutton, Evan Ingram, Marvin Mims, guys who people aren't going to say are A+, but Marvin Mims is an all-pro returner 2 years in a row. Cortland Sutton just got paid, has the 3rd most explosive plays by a receiver in the entire NFL. He's only behind Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. They have built that roster, which was 2 years ago deemed the worst roster in the NFL. That is now a confirmed playoff team, and a lot of people are a very trendy pick to say, hey, this team can win the division. This team could go far in the playoffs. And obviously their coach said they could go to the Super Bowl. We'll see. But you only got to be good at 2 of the 3. Really good at 2 of the 3. And you can have a lot of success. And that's if you are like the Broncos, you're 2 of 3 and it's not the quarterback. If you are the Eagles, you're 2 of 3 and it's not the coach. And realistically, even if you're 2 of 3 is your quarterback and coach, the greatest dynasty ever, Bill Belichick, go look at his last 6-7 years of drafting. There was no standout picks. I think his last Pro Bowler or All-Pro was Gronk. They went almost a decade with bad drafts. And they were still the best team in the NFL consistently. So it doesn't really matter which two of the three. You just got to get two of the three right. But coach, quarterback, general manager. And that's what I think makes it so frustrating for the next guy we're going to talk about, being Joe Burrow. So Joe Burrow, I got some heat because I call Joe Burrow the fifth best quarterback in football because he's always been in the big four conversation, him, Allen, Lamar, and Mahomes. But I think the other three guys have separated from him a little bit, mainly because I do factor in team success with the quarterback specifically. I then walked that back a little bit a few weeks ago where I was like, you know what? If you really look at how the Bengals are run and how the Bengals operate as a franchise, he might not ever get back to Super Bowl, and I'm not even sure if it's his fault now. Look, the Bengals, I'm watching that preseason game the other night. Why is Joe Burrow running around doing that in preseason? Why are you subjecting the best player to ever be in your franchise to that kind of punishment? You haven't figured out offensive line since he's been there. Your defense is atrocious, and you won't pay the one guy who is just slightly credible on their defense. You paid your two receivers, but you made them drag it out to the farthest possible scenario, and that cost you extra money, where you could have signed them potentially earlier and saved a couple $1 million. The Bengals are essentially the even cheaper or less noteworthy Dallas Cowboys because their owner is also their GM and has a huge impact. He's not their GM exactly, but has a huge say in what goes on, obviously between contracts, drafts. He has a whole lot to say. He's just not as media driven as Jerry is. And that's the difference. We see Jerry all the time, and Jerry gets on our nerves. Jerry's annoying because we constantly see him. Mike Brown is just a little more in the background. He is now in front of a camera and a microphone a little bit more as they've had all these contracts the last couple of months. And over this past season, we've heard him talk more than we probably had the 5 years previous. But Joe Burrow, they can't get his offensive line right. They can't get his defense right. The one thing they got right is they asked him, who do you want us to get? And he said, I want Jamar Chase, because that was his receiver from college. So the Bengals and we're going to look back on that Super Bowl one day, and I truly believe this, we're going to go, how the hell was Cincinnati here? Because you're going to look back with some time and go, so the Rams had Aaron Donald, one of the greatest defensive players ever, Sean McVay, who was one of the most brilliant minds ever entered the NFL, and his coaching tree is only going to up his legacy, even if he doesn't himself get back to another Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, who's going to be a potential Hall of Fame, borderline Hall of Fame quarterback. Odell Beckham, one of the most noteworthy names at receiver in NFL history. And we're going to go, and Andrew Whitworth, too, one of the best left tackles ever. And we're going to go, and they played the Bengals, and obviously they just dominated the Bengals. They had to. Now, that game was close because Burrow, Chase, and the defense was slightly better for Cincinnati back then. But we're going to look back on the game and go, how the hell was Cincinnati here? And if you had to ask yourself, if you went over under on the consensus big four quarterbacks who are all in their prime, over under one Super Bowl appearance the remainder of their career, you would go over with Mahomes without thinking about it. I believe you would go over on Lamar without thinking about it. I think you would go over on Josh Allen because there's almost this innate, they're just too great to not at least get to one. Don't even do over under. Just do, will you make it to one more Super Bowl before your career is over? Those three guys, they just feel they're too great. They're too talented. They are this generation's top guys. Burrow, I wouldn't be shocked if he never made it back to another Super Bowl. And that's not to say he's less talented than the other three, but look at who he's playing for. Look at his team. Look at his ownership. Look at his general manager. Look at his coach. He's in the least likely to succeed position of all of the consensus big four quarterbacks. I said a few weeks ago, I feel bad for him now. Getting the Bengals to the Super Bowl when he did, That's going to go down as an all-time one of the 10 greatest things that ever happened in sports. You got that team, that franchise to a Super Bowl. And I'm not even trying to be critical of Joe here. I'm defending Joe Burrow. I'm being critical of ownership, management. They have I saw earlier today, they have the least amount of resources attributed to scouting in the entire NFL. So you're not paying guys to scout, which is absolutely mandatory once you've paid Joe Burrow $55 million a year, once you've paid Chase and Higgins 30 plus each, because you're not going to be able to keep getting superstar level guys and signing them. No, you need to scout and develop your second round picks, your third round picks. You have to be able to coach. I don't know if their coach is the right answer, Zach Taylor. Yes, he got them to a Super Bowl, but everything kind of worked out perfectly that year. So is Zach Taylor developing the next set of guys? I don't know who's the great young Cincinnati Bengals player. We know the quarterback, we know the two receivers, and we know the defensive end that they don't want to pay. So you're not developing, you're not scouting, don't know if your coach is the correct guy. Your ownership is cheap, still haven't fixed your offensive line. Like, what do they want Joe Burrow to do? Again, I was critical of Burrow at one point, and the more I looked at it, I was like, look, he plays for that franchise. So what do you want from him?
I mean, if you want to be a part of one of the coolest, most unique communities, don't forget to like and subscribe.